Dito isso, vamos trabalhar então, né, gente? Vocês devem estar pensando, já não é a hora, né? Está bem atrasada a programação, realmente. Mas vamos lá. Então, para começarmos a nossa programação técnica desses 2 dias, nós estamos muito honrados em chamar ao palco desse fórum a senhora Charlotte Morton. A Charlotte, ela é excelentíssima ordem do Império Britânico, ela é diretora executiva da Associação Mundial de Biogás e da Anaerobic Digestion and Bioresource Association, que é a Associação da Digestão Anaeróbia e Biorrecursos. Convidamos a todos para assistir à palestra da Charlotte, que nos enriquecerá com uma visão global, ou seja, o biogás além das fronteiras brasileiras, o que está acontecendo dentro desse cenário do biogás. Então, mais uma vez eu convido Charlotte, por favor.
Coming? Well, good morning, everybody. It's a huge privilege for me to be here amongst you today. As I'm going to show you in my presentation, we are going to need every single one of you to deliver the potential of this industry that is so critical to ensuring that the planet that we call our home remains livable on. So, and can I just also thank the interpreters who are doing a fantastic job, because without them I can't understand anything, so I'm particularly very grateful. So let me start by just telling you a little bit about the World Biogas Association. We're just over 7.5 years old, having been launched at COP22 in Marrakesh, and we're the global trade association for landfill gas, biogas, and anaerobic digestion. A great marketing term, probably isn't. We now represent over 100 global companies and are growing quite fast, as you can appreciate. Perhaps most importantly, we are members of numerous global organizations, including a partner of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, which is the Secretariat for Delivery of the Global Methane Pledge. And last year, following our successful engagement with the Indian government, we were invited to be a founding member of the Global Biofuels Alliance. Our focus is very much on recycling all the organic wastes that we humans generate, which are causing such a problem, but also as such an extraordinary resource. Thank you. So our focus is about scaling up investments, benchmarking technologies, facilitating and developing best practices, and ultimately ensuring that you, the industry, are in a position to grow this industry as fast as possible. Go. So as I've already talked about, we humans generate over 105 billion tons of organic wastes every year. And all of those organic wastes are emitting methane if they're not being recycled. And methane, as we're all aware, is 86 times more potent a greenhouse gas than CO2 in its first 20 years of life. And that's why over 150 countries have now signed up to the Global Methane Pledge, including, fortunately, Brazil. And as you're all aware, the Global Methane Pledge is committing countries to reducing their methane emissions by 30% on 2020 levels by 2030. And you're also all aware how soon 2030 is. Anaerobic digestion and a raft of complementary technologies is a platform technology that extracts the most value out of that organic material. So just for example, all that organic material contains the equivalent of around 1/3 of today's natural gas demand. So we think of it as yucky waste, but actually it's extraordinarily valuable. And in addition to that, of course, there's all the nutrients that it still contains that are essential for future food production. And if we are able to recycle all of those organic wastes, we can deliver half of the global methane pledge, a whole half, and reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 11%. So we are talking really, really big numbers. But today we're just recycling around 2%, which means there's 98% that still need to be recycled. Now the good news is that the industry is already growing very fast. So those of you who are investors in the audience will be very excited by the fact that the combined annual growth rate of the industry globally is already around 8.5%. Great, really exciting. However, this is the growth rate that we need to be achieving if we're going to deliver that potential by 2030. You can see the green line at the bottom. That's the exciting growth rate of 8.5%, but we actually need to be achieving over 40%. So it means all of you, all of the companies in this audience, you need to be performing superbly well. And so let me take this moment just to give a shout out for diversity and the Mujeres do Biogás. Diversity has been demonstrated to ensure that companies perform significantly better. The more diverse your employees' workforce, the more diverse management levels, more diverse your boards are. So let's ensure that we support diversity in all of our activities. And again, a big shout out to the work that the Mujeres do Biogás network are doing here in Brazil. It's the biggest and best network I'm aware of in the world. So now let's focus on this challenge. I've already highlighted that the 2030 timeline for the global methane pledge is significantly less than 6 years away. Just think about that for a minute. So we have to build hundreds of thousands of biogas plants in less than 6 years. I had a great chat yesterday with Beatrice from Total Energies, who gave me 4 pages of notes going through all the challenges involved in building biogas plants here in Brazil, which are no doubt replicated in many parts of the world. In Europe, it takes 2 to 7 years on average just to get a permit. So we're absolutely not going to deliver that if we keep doing business as usual. We have to do something different. And that's the purpose of our Making Biogas Happen program. And I'm going to talk to you about 2 elements of this program, which are being funded by the Global Methane Hub, Total Energies, and GHD. These 2 elements, and the others, are designed to ensure that we have in place a regulatory framework that works for the biogas industry, that it's standardized as much as possible, and that we facilitate the design, build, and operation of high-performing professional plants. So let me first talk about the first one, which is the Global Biogas Regulatory Framework. Every time a company goes to do business in one country or another, it has to learn all the rules and regulations of that country, which simply takes time. In the UK, it took 3 years to develop the standard for injecting biomethane into the gas grid. 3 years, that's more than half the time we have till 2030. So the global biogas regulatory framework is in essence a standard version of all of the suite of policies, standards and regulations that the industry needs that could effectively be downloaded by every country and implemented as they are. Now we know that we will have to do some adaptation, but phase one is about developing that suite of regulations, the standard suite of regulations, taking examples from the best examples from around the world and making them readily available so we're not reinventing the wheel for every single policy and regulation that we need. Phase two will be about rolling out that suite of regulations and policies in Brazil. And we look forward to working with as many of you as possible, and of course with CI Biogas and Biogas and the leading organizations here to ensure that that works in Brazil. But what it should do is it should mean that we bring forward the time at which the environment, the regulatory environment that exists in Brazil for biogas, we bring that forward by many, many years so that the industry is enabled to grow at that exponential rate. The second element of that program is the International AD Certification Scheme. This is, in essence, designed to ensure that every plant is designed, built, and operated to minimum standards, the minimum standards of health and safety. There are numerous examples of biogas plants built around the world which have been built too fast or not to those minimum standards, and they're not performing to the level that we need to, and they create a bad reputation for the industry. There is nothing wrong with biogas at all. Biogas done well is a fantastic technology that delivers enormous value, but it does need to be done well. One element of that AD certification scheme is also a standardized life cycle assessment, which will ensure that we are able to evidence the decarbonization that we're achieving, to ensure that people outside the industry also have confidence in that decarbonization, in particular the greenhouse gas protocol owners, the World Resources Institute. And the second element of that is linking that LCA to carbon certificates or methane certificates so that every developer or operator can be rewarded through the carbon markets for the decarbonization that's being achieved. So I'm just going to not talk too much about the opportunity in Brazil because we've heard today that an update on the report produced by CI Biogas is imminent, and this data that I put on the slide is from CI Biogas's 2022 report. But I just highlight the fact that today, or when this report was done, Brazil is only achieving just over 3% of its potential. So there's a huge opportunity here to be delivered. Numerous jobs to be created, huge supply chains, etc. So let me just lastly just talk about what I've already talked about, phase two of implementing these two elements of the Making Biogas Happen program, which is a roadmap for biogas for Brazil. I think you're all aware that because biogas is a circular economy technology, it involves multiple stakeholders that don't normally talk to each other. And all those stakeholders' interests need to be aligned if this industry is to grow at the rate that it needs to grow. So what the process of developing a biogas roadmap does is it brings all those stakeholders together, it understands the issues, and it gets alignment on the solutions that will get over those challenges. So I'm pleased to say that we've already had interest from the Global Methane Hub in funding the development of a biogas roadmap for India and for Brazil, And I think there could be parallels, and speaking to Felipe yesterday agrees that there could be parallels in aligning the biogas roadmaps for India and Brazil and sharing lessons to be learned from potentially similar environments. But the Global Methane Hub is interested in looking to work with us, and obviously all the stakeholders in this room, to develop that biogas roadmap, which will be, in my view, completely game-changing and exactly what we're looking for. And this was started through our work with the Indian government as part of the Global Biofuels Alliance. And the Indian government is very ambitious. They've made a commitment to building 5,000 biogas plants by 2030. So that's quite a few. And we hope that the work that we're doing as part of the G20 framework, and obviously Brazil is now host of the G20, will again support the development of all of this work and create a biogas roadmap blueprint that can be shared with other G20 countries as well. But what would be great is seeing countries like Brazil showing the leadership, which is clearly here. Look at all of you here, and the work of the Mujeres do Biogas. So I really congratulate all of you for the work that's been happening, the progress that's been happening, the growth curve that I've already seen growing up. And I wish you all the very best of luck and learning from many happy hours, not just those officially called happy hours, listening to the technical sessions and collaborating together to build a fantastic biogas industry here in Brazil. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos a ilustre participação da Charlotte, presidente da Associação Mundial de Biogás. Foi um prazer recebê-la aqui em nosso evento.